Good Mom and Monday. You're here with the Mistake Mama podcast. I'm Kaylee.
And I'm Mandee.
And we are your hosts. If you remember from last week, I mentioned that this week we're going to be talking about overwhelm. Mm-hmm. So this week we're going to be talking about being overwhelmed.
Yeah. A lot of that around here.
Same. Lots of it. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of just life in general that's been really overwhelming.
Yes.
So let's get into it. But this week, or not this week, but first.
But alas.
But first, our wins, fails, and our books.
Yes. Boy, do I have a fail.
Ooh, okay. Do we want to talk about wins first so that can be like a highlight, or do we want to just jump right into that?
My win goes with my fail.
Okay. Here, I'll go first. I'll make it easy.
Okay.
My win this week is that I was able to get a partial diagnosis for Anna having ADHD.
Nice.
It's more so like a preemptive. They're pretty positive she does. They just have to finish up the paperwork for getting all the stuff in that's like, this is our evidence.
And what do they do for the testing for that?
We're using the Vanderbilt thing. It's like a questionnaire type thing that's like based off of this. We're pretty sure she has ADHD. Oh. And it's basically like an evaluation of how she is at home and how she is at school.
Gotcha.
But so that's what we're doing.
Okay.
The person that she's seeing has basically been like, I see a lot of the markers. We're pretty sure she has it. Let's just do this as kind of like a more so the formality part of it, and then she'll have an official diagnosis.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's exciting.
Well, that's helpful.
Yes.
To know.
I
feel like that's the biggest part of diagnosis, is that once you know, then it helps you realize like, oh, this behavior is because of this, and we can do this to help it.
Yeah, and we've always been pretty confident that she was ADHD. Right. It's just nice to have, confirmation. A professional be like, I see it. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's right. ADHD.
Yeah. Because I'm sure even if you think that your kid does, there's probably something in the back of your mind that's always like, but is it?
Exactly.
Like, I'm not sure, kind of a thing. So that's good.
Yep.
Good.
And then my fail is, I can't think of my fail.
Would you like to hear my massive fail?
I would love to. Let's do you first on that one.
So Kaylee and I were just in the kitchen, and you admired my dogs, that they are very clean and bright and shiny. So they went to the groomers.
Okay.
Let's see, it's been 2 nights ago.
Okay.
Michael wakes up at about 5 a.m. To a smell.
Oh no. Your face is scaring me there.
So one of the dogs had massive diarrhea in our room, on Michael's clothes, on their bed. And then the other dog proceeded to slip at some point and fall in it. And so then it was spread along the walls.
I shouldn't be laughing.
I told Michael, I said, don't you tell Kaylee, because I need her reaction on this podcast. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. So I'm unaware. I'm still sleeping at this point.
Uh-huh.
And then Michael gets up. This is the calmest he's ever had to deal with like a poop. He gets up. He's, doing his thing. I'm hearing this afterwards. I wake up to...
the spraying, like a spray bottle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I look up at him, and he looks at me like this. And I'm like, for those of you listening, just wide-eyed with just shock all over his face. Horror. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, the dog's shit everywhere. Okay, the dogs have pooped before, like in the house.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, no. It is all over the walls. It is all over the floor. It is on my clothes that were on the floor. It is everywhere. Oh, no. And I was like, oh, God. Well, so I have 2 children that are sleeping on either side of me. And I'm like, if I get up to help them, the kids are now awake. Oh, no. And then we have to deal with the kids on top of this.
Oh, my God.
So I said, do you want me to get up? And he's like, it's fine. And I was like, okay. So I'm just laying there awake in the room. And of course now I'm awake. So now I smell it. And it is god awful.
Oh, no. Was this Monday night or Sunday night?
I want to say this was Monday
or
night.
I guess morning, I guess. So Tuesday.
I think it was Monday morning.
So you had a late night on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that can just add to the fails. You were probably exhausted by 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
How late were you up? I never asked you.
About 1.
1? Oh,
Thankfully,
so you're going at 4 hours.
So the reason I was up so late is because I had edited the podcast that went up last Monday. Till about
last week
15 minutes left that I needed to. So I was like, Sunday evening, I will just bust out the last 15 minutes. It'll be fine. Well, then when I went into it, everything was corrupted.
Literally no sound. She was texting me frantic. We were trying to figure it out. I was like, every possible thing I could troubleshoot. I was Googling everything. I'm sitting there in bed trying to put Ellie to sleep. She's on my boob. And I'm just like holding my phone up. I almost dropped it on my face. And I'm like, how do I help her?
Before I even texted you, I was sitting there for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just so stressed, like trying to figure it out, clicking every button that I could possibly think of. And Michael's like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to text Kaylee and hope she's awake. Anyway, so the file was corrupted, so I ended up having to re-edit the whole thing. Oh, God. Which the only thing that made it kind of nice is I had already edited so much.
So you kind of knew
I
where
could kind of
everything
click through and figure out where the spots were.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So the win to my fail was that I didn't have to clean it up. Sorry to my husband.
Oh, man.
He was a trooper. He really was. And then, so the dogs just went to the groomer. Well, like I said, one slipped. And it was Gaz. So it was all over his butt and his tail.
Oh, man.
And I was almost in tears. I was like, we literally just took them to the groomers. Like Friday. This happened Monday morning. We took them Friday.
So you guys had to give him a bath?
Yeah, Michael did. Well, he washed the back end outside.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on the inside, your dogs look very pretty.
Thanks. They smell good from the waist up. It was terrible. Terrible.
Oh, man.
I don't wish that on anyone.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Diarrhea. Don't even know what it was from either. Hi, Quincy.
Oh, man. That sucks.
Yeah. It's all clean. Husband cleaned it. He was a trooper. But yeah. And he kept, so I'm lying there awake and I keep hearing just spraying. And I'm like, he's being so dramatic about this. And he's like, it's up the walls. And then when I wake up, he's like showing me, he's like, it was all up here. It was all in the back of the door because it was on his like hip, Gaz's hip. So when he was walking, trying to like get out of the way, it's just rubbing
Smearing
all over
everywhere. Oh no. At least your guys is, I mean, the only at least that I have here is that you guys don't have carpet.
Yeah. Michael even said, he's like, thank God they were in our room and not out in the living room. Or our rug
the big old rug
demolished.
Mm-hmm. That would have been just I don't care how expensive this rug is, we're throwing it away type.
Literally. Yep. Yeah. So.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That sucks. I bet that was overwhelming.
Very. And I'm sure it was 10 times more overwhelming for Michael because he had to clean it.
Oh, I bet.
But yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yep. Don't know what could top that one. Have you thought of a fail in that time frame?
So I haven't thought of a fail as in like within this last week, which is obviously typically what we try to do.
Right.
However, I guess I can use this as a segue to that announcement.
Oh, yes.
Thing, that event, whatever I was telling you about. So in relation to overwhelm. So, I mean, this is a good episode to do this week specifically because this is a change in the last week. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a fail per se, but it is a big change for our family and it's overwhelming. Granted, I will say some other overwhelm is that my husband's recent job changes have been
a lot
overwhelming, but the big change is not that. If you guys remember a few episodes ago, we had, I don't know why I'm getting a little bit emotional talking about this because I didn't want to make this choice and I feel defeated and you'll understand in a minute.
You're making me so nervous. I don't know anything right now.
I didn't tell her. So everything she's about to say
My
is
palms
her
are sweaty.
reaction. Oh, we did an episode on homeschool versus public school.
Okay.
We have decided, because of how overwhelmed I have been with probably dealing with Anna's ADHD, she really struggles with reading to the point where it goes into, she goes in panics and she can't do it. I am no longer going to be homeschooling her.
Oh, no.
And I'm really upset about that choice. However, we're not public schooling her either. This was a decision made a couple of nights ago when I was trying to help her with reading and rhyming and like some other like basic, kindergarten type stuff. Because how we did homeschool was, it was just all year, a little bit here and there. We didn't really take breaks anytime. We would have days every once in a while where we wouldn't do any school, but we didn't participate in summer break. Now, she is amazing at math, but that girl can't read worth shit.
Sorry, Anna.
And I mean, she can read like some really easy stuff, like, the cat ran, cat ran to mouse, or rat, and rat ran with, easy, really easy stuff like that. The word "the" she can't figure out for the life of her, and like, there's some other like the compound sounds like the ow, the WH, and all those weird ones she can't figure out.
Okay.
And she'd get really overwhelmed.
Okay.
And then her overwhelm would trigger my overwhelm, and it was just a mess.
Right.
So we decided, after some research, she's going to do an online charter school.
Okay.
That I found, that I did a lot of research on. I'll tell you what it is later. I'm not going to obviously tell them.
Okay.
And they have a lot of good stuff to offer, and she's going to get an IEP for her, the reading portion. She writes great. If I ask her to write something, she can figure it out. She can do that kind of recall. It's if something is in front of her, she has so much trouble reading it.
So it's the visual.
It's the visual. Yep. It's like it's not there.
Gotcha.
And she has trouble with association as well. So like rhyming, if I say, okay, what word rhymes with sock? I would be looking for examples: lock, mock, rock.
Yeah.
Even made up words. I almost said flock as a made up word, but that's a real word.
I almost said schmuck, but I'm pretty sure that's a word too.
Yeah. But like she could have made something up, we were, whatever, but she would instead say things like shoe. So she can do the association, but she can't list a rhyming word. If I put rhyming words in front of her, like, pictures, what rhymes with sock? Is it lock or is it bear? She can match them.
Okay.
So I'm not 100% sure what it is, but she struggles in a lot of areas, and it was triggering my being overwhelmed. I couldn't handle her panic attacks in the moment, because her panic attacks as relation to school versus her panic attacks relation to like things at home are very different.
Okay.
Because with school, I have the need to be like, well, we have to learn this. It's not just something I can just not do.
Right. It's not something that you can just be like, okay, well, we won't worry about that then.
Yeah. We're just not going to, if this toy is going to cause a problem, we're just not going
Right.
to play with this toy right now.
Right.
I can't do that if I'm, if every single time she's like, I don't want to learn this.
Right.
I don't know how to handle that.
Right.
And I love teaching her things that are just about life or whatever, but I've learned through doing homeschooling, I'm not emotionally cut out for it.
That makes sense. That's fair.
Education-wise, I think I could easily,
Yeah.
I don't want people to be like, oh, well, you're homeschooling her, you're not an educated person. I have a bachelor's degree. Like, I'm not just, whatever, I didn't flunk out of school or whatever, and I got honor roll in my thing. Yes, I'm not a trained educator, but I've been a tutor. I have a bachelor's degree, and I was seeking out resources for areas that I didn't know how to do, but I don't know how to teach somebody with, I don't want to say learning disabilities per se, but somebody who is at a mental disadvantage, to learn in a structured way like that.
Right.
And I don't know what she needs. And so I decided with Thomas and all that,
Right.
to seek out other options. And we looked at a couple different things. We looked at like, okay, do we want to just find supplemental things to help with our homeschooling? Or do we want to just be like, we're just not going to homeschool anymore?
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, we have 2 other young children, one of whom is getting tested for autism next month. Yeah, next month. And then we have, you know, our youngest who has ongoing, I don't want to say medical needs because right now she's fine, but like we have to be observing her, you know.
Medical potentials.
Yeah, because she has a rare disorder that can come with very detrimental things that we have to be keeping an eye on her and doing appointments to keep up. You know, we have to go to another children's hospital at the beginning of next month, just as like maintenance for her.
Right.
You know, so we have a lot of different things. I'm trying to still further my writing career. We have the podcast and everything, and it was a lot to try to also be schooling somebody who I don't know how to school. I have ADHD myself, but her ADHD seems very different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's going to a charter school.
That's okay, though.
I know. I feel so defeated. And I mean, I know that there's like, you know, oh, this is a selfless choice because, you know, I wanted desperately to homeschool her.
Right.
Desperately wanted to. And this was a choice that I had to make and put myself completely aside. To be like, this has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with like, it's not about what I want. It's not about what I, you know, whatever, or what I think is best. This is what I know is best.
This is about what she needs.
Yeah, exactly. And she needed that little extra help. And the one that we chose, I really like it. With charter schools, if you or our listeners don't know, so there's a couple different types of schools, right? There's, you know, homeschooling, obviously. There's public, you know, the typical, what most people go to. There's private schools. And then there's Montessori, which is more of like the rare one. Not everybody goes to those. Not even a lot of people know what they are. But then there's charter schools. I know a lot of people have heard of them, but they don't know what they are.
Right.
A charter school is a version of public school. It's kind of like that in between of public and homeschool because it's very individualized.
Right.
Instead of it being just like a single class that kids in elementary school go to, they kind of take courses based off of what they're capable of doing. If they're further ahead, they get to do things that are further ahead of where they are.
Right.
Like Anna being more similar to what a late first grader, early second grader can do in terms of math. She's probably going to be getting into a math class that's further than what, you know, somebody of her age would typically get into.
Right.
Whereas reading, she's probably going to go back a little bit. And so rather than just being in a single classroom like you find in normal public schools, it's more catered to what the kid needs.
Right. I had looked into a couple charter schools because I liked the individualness of them. And I also liked that it's kind of homeschooling.
Yep.
But you have like a set curriculum.
Yeah.
And I feel like it can be easier that way. You know, instead of you trying to come up with your own stuff and researching and trying to figure out, and am I doing everything right and stuff like that.
And it prepares the kids for the required testing that our state has. And all of the prep for that. And so that's not something that I need to do because I don't want to pay $200 to get access to what those tests have so that I know what I need to teach her.
Right.
You know, they will teach those things as well as other things. And they have like 30 clubs that they can join that they're somewhat virtual. There's like a baking one that's like once a month. They go on Zoom and then they bake with their class. There's a homesteaders one that I really want to put her in.
That's cool.
It's twice a month, more if desired. Not far from here. I'll tell you where later. And so they get to like learn how to live off the land. There's animals, there's planting, and like all of the cool things. Yeah. She's interested in that. There's a coding one that as young as kindergarten can start to learn Python, JavaScript. Like they have all the different things. There's a excelling, or like, I forget what they call it at the thing. But there's like a program where kids in like the high school years can do like the college courses and stuff. They can do dual enrollment. It's, you know, there's a lot of different things. And so I feel that this is the right choice.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of guilt. And
is it almost like you feel like you let yourself down?
I think so, because I know that I'm not letting her down. Right. She's excited.
She's going to be fine.
She's fine. Yeah. She's happy. But I definitely feel like I failed myself. And part of me feels like I failed her, though I know that that's not the case.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where mom guilt comes in, too.
Yeah, that's a lot of mom guilt. So, I mean, this kind of relates to that one, too. So, if you...
Yeah. Oops.
That overwhelms me. So, really quick insertion here. I'll have it up in the cards over there. Or in the description if you're listening. Or watching. It'll be down there, too. Listen or watch our episode on mom guilt. We talk a lot about it. And this just kind of plays into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah. I have a lot of mom guilt around it. But I know that I shouldn't.
You shouldn't. Because I think she'll be fine. And it's still, I feel like this is still aligning with your guys's, like, morals and your guys's beliefs and your guys's, you know, the road you wanted to be on. It's just, you're on the dirt road right next to it.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
It's just not quite the road you wanted.
Yeah. And I think the part that I feel the most guilty about is that it was a choice made because I was overwhelmed.
Right. But she was also overwhelmed too.
Yes. There is just that, like, I wish that I had been able to regulate myself and be able to help her push through it.
Right.
But, you know, and we're working on trying to do all of those things. And so I know that I'm making the right choice.
Yeah.
And when we were trying to figure out, like, okay, well, do we want to put her in public school? Like, actual public school?
Right.
She's barely ever been away from us.
Right.
You know, aside from just, like, short bits here and there. I know she'd have fun or whatever.
Yeah.
But, so this is, like, a really... this is a really good, happy medium, I think, for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, like, they'll have... I think only 2 hours worth of courses, which is also significantly less than actual public school.
Yeah, exactly.
And then she'll have a whole bunch of stuff, not a whole bunch, but, like, you know, other things that she needs to work on outside of live class time. And so that'll be more similar to homeschool. And then she'll be free the rest of the day to, you know, still be able to do her gymnastics and do the different clubs that she wants to do. And all those different things. And so we've been looking at the course curriculum options catalog. That's what the word is.
Okay.
Catalog. Trying to figure out, like, what clubs would she be interested in. She can't shut up about the baking one. She really is excited for that one.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we just finished all the paperwork with them yesterday.
Wow.
So when I say this is fresh, I mean...
It's really fresh.
It's really fresh. She does her placement testing at the beginning of August. And they send us a Chromebook to do all of her schoolwork on. And this is free. This is a completely free thing.
Right, yeah.
Which was one of the things I didn't... Because we're, you know... We do a podcast, and I'm an author, but we're low income. You know, we don't make $1 million as much as I wish we did.
That was great. That would help with the overwhelm.
Yeah, and so private school and things like that wasn't an option, and so I needed to find something that was free but not in person. And so this is, you know, and it's also not K through 12. I know a lot of people talk about, like, K through 12. This is not that. This is different.
Right.
The only similarity is they're both online.
Right.
There's the only similarity.
Yeah. Yeah. So does she do any in-class time, or is it all online?
100% online.
Okay, because I know that there's what do they call them? Mixed or split. I know there's some of them that are, like, split, where you can do, it's like 3 days online, 2 days in class or whatever. Yeah.
And I know that some charter schools are in person. This one is completely online.
Cool.
Yep. And it's, they do accreditation. I don't know how to say that word.
Accreditation? I think you're right.
Yeah. Once every however many years, I think it's 3 years. They had their most recent one in 2021, so they're not due for another one until next year. And they do, like, field trips and all that stuff.
That's
and so
cool.
she'll get to, like, actually meet her classmates and stuff too, which I think is really cool. But I like that this is a good happy medium where I'm not having to put more on myself than I can handle right now.
Right.
Because I was just so overwhelmed to the point where we would have days and I'd be like, you know, she'd be like, can we do some school? And I just didn't want to.
Right.
but I needed to.
Fair.
But I didn't want to because I knew that it was going to turn into chaos, because it always did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't her fault. When, you know, I remember
Right.
being there, not understanding. I struggled with reading as a kid. But it's hard.
Right. She just needs somebody to teach her in a different way that you are capable of right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm trying to let it all digest because this is me just for the first time hearing it.
Yeah. I didn't tell anybody. This is my first
Yeah.
time, like, actually saying anything. The only other person that knows other than my husband and Anna is my mom. But she was actually one of the people that was like, oh, so like K through 12. I'm like,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
But most people don't know what charter schools are.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Right. I had only looked into them because Michael's cousin, the one I've mentioned on here who homeschooled, his aunt homeschooled his cousin. She had talked to me about looking into charter schools because a lot of them, they will also give you like a stipend of, you know, here's the money for any
Resources and stuff.
or like paper, pencils, supplies. That's the word I was looking for.
I'm not totally sure what all their website is so extensive, and I've only just seen some of it. And so I'm not 100% sure. The only thing that I am for sure about is that she gets the Chromebook, and that gets sent to us sometime in August.
Yeah. I think it's either they'll provide the materials or they will give you like a certain budget for, okay, now you go out and buy these materials.
Which is
so
really
helpful.
cool. Yeah. And I know that they said something about like there's other resources and stuff they'll send us, so I wasn't sure exactly what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I know that they were like, you know, they don't have a requirement on how much involvement the parents need to be in. They have like recommendations, or like, but the way that they structure it, it can be completely student led.
Okay.
I know for the younger kids, you know, the assignments themselves might need to be explained by the parents.
Right.
But yeah.
I'm excited for you guys.
I am too. I think this will be really good for her.
I think it'll be good for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it'll pretty much just be like, all right, Anna, time to get on. And I set it up for her. Then she can go to her school, and I'm not having to be tasked with that.
Right.
And then I can see, because I will have a parent account through them. And have you ever used Canvas before? It's like a schooling program that a lot of schools use.
I'm pretty sure that's what my brothers use. I never used it, but...
There's Canvas, there's Blackboard, there's a couple other ones.
Yeah, I think that my brothers use Canvas.
Yeah, they use it. They use Canvas.
And my mom does too.
And I'm familiar with Canvas. I've used Canvas. Actually, I think all of my college was through Canvas.
Ours was... I don't even remember what it was called. WebRunner or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a couple. I only know of Canvas and Blackboard.
Okay.
Thomas has used Blackboard, and I've used Canvas.
Okay.
And so I'm familiar with it. I think I used Canvas for like literally 8 years worth of school.
Oh, okay.
So I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
That's nice.
And so I'll be able to easily help her navigate it. But yeah.
I think another thing too is, you know, homeschooling while also having 2 small children to
it's a
take
lot
care
harder
of.
than I thought.
Yeah. Because while you're trying to sit there and focus with her, you can't just have one-on-one quiet time for that allotted time frame.
Exactly.
It's, and I also have to go grab my daughter who's hungry, and my son now is running around, you know? So it's not just, I think it would be different if you were allotted that time frame, you know?
Yeah.
Because then it would maybe not feel so overwhelming. So I think that this, like you said, is a good happy medium where she can still learn. She's still at home with you. She can still do all of her extracurriculars. And, you know, maybe down the road, if, you know, this, you know, I'm not saying that this wouldn't work, but I'm just saying, like, if you wanted to switch back.
Oh, yeah. I could a lot more
could.
easily could.
Exactly.
I easily could. It's not as different as pulling her out of an in-person public school.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I could.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to kind of, like, play it by ear over the next 2 years to see kind of what this looks like. And then if I decide to put Damon in it, and then I'll be able to report back to you if you decide that you want to do something similar.
Maybe we can report back here for everybody else, too.
Exactly.
Charter school info.
Yes. I don't think I'm ever going to release, at least publicly, what charter school she goes to.
Right.
Even though it's online, it is technically Oregon-wide. It's primarily in this area.
Yeah.
Not quite this area, but a little north of here.
Okay.
So, I mean, technically, there isn't really any issue, but just for her privacy and all that, I'm not going to be sharing that. So don't ask.
Right.
You're either going to get ignored, the comment's going to get deleted, or I'm going to say no.
Yeah. No, thanks. Not going to do that.
But I will report back on how that goes. Her first day is like the first week of September or something like that. So I think their school schedule or whatever is a little bit different, because don't they start in August normally around here?
It's usually like the first week of September.
Oh, okay. I know some other areas are August.
It started at like August 30th. So the very, very end. But usually it's the first week of September.
Was it Montana then was starting in August? Somebody, I swear, was starting like before my birthday. I think it might have been Montana.
I'm pretty sure like usually our school started like the 3rd or the 4th or something of September.
Got you. See, ours was always like the first Wednesday after, was it Labor Day? That's right there.
You're asking the wrong chick.
It's either Labor Day or I think it's Labor Day in September. Like that first week of September is always like Labor Day.
Something like that.
Something like that. It was always like the first Wednesday after Labor Day was our first day of school.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure Montana
was August.
It's the only other place that I've lived, because Washington, like I said, was always right after Labor Day, and I've only ever lived here and then in Montana. And
right.
I didn't go to school in Montana, so
maybe it was Montana, because I've always heard September.
Yeah. See, that's what I thought.
I think one year it was like I said, August like 30th or something.
It must have been Montana then, because I swear it was like his sisters were starting
super
before
early.
my birthday.
That's wild.
And then I was like, I would have been held back.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily held back, because I technically started like right after I turned 5.
Right, so you probably honestly would have been fine. But
Which, speaking of, with turning 5, technically Anna started kindergarten early, because with homeschool, you can start them kind of whenever you want.
Right.
And so that'll be interesting to see if the school decides when she does the placement testing, if they're going to keep her in first grade or if she's going to have to be legally held back.
Oh, true.
Because she is a legal kindergartner.
Oh, okay.
I did the intent to homeschool, so on a legal standpoint, she is a kindergartner going into first grade. And so we'll see if they're going to want to have her be technically in kindergarten or if they'll allow her to move into first grade.
That'll be interesting.
And I had to send them I had to make a report card with everything that she has learned.
Yeah.
To send to her school to be like, this is what she knows, to see if they think that she can continue on or if they want to hold her back or anything like that. So we'll see.
One more thing on the charter school and then we'll switch to Overwhelmed.
Okay.
But was there something that you had to she had to meet certain criteria to be in the charter school?
No.
Okay.
Nope. They had a minimum age for going in, which was part of the thing. She had to be, if she was going into kindergarten, she had to be 5 by September 1st, which is where I think there's going to be a little bit of an issue because her birthday's in November. But because she was homeschooled, that requirement wasn't there.
Right.
But first grade doesn't have a minimum age. Because the kindergarten one says that there's no exceptions there. But the first grade one doesn't say anything about exceptions. So I'm thinking she's going to be allowed to go into first grade. Yeah. I would be a little bit confused as to why she wouldn't. But that'll be something for the school to decide.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I think Maverick would be like an older kid because he would have to wait a whole year.
Oh.
Because he wouldn't be 5 by September.
So him and Damon are going to be in different years.
Yeah.
What? Just homeschool him that first year.
Because Damon will turn 5, and then he will get in that year. Maverick will turn 5 like 3 months later. So then he'll have to wait a whole year.
I mean, if this works, if they allow her into first grade, you can always just homeschool him that first year.
For the first year, yeah.
So that they can be in the same grade. We're going to have to do the same thing with Quincy and Ellie then.
Yeah.
Because my kids are both.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, if it's a matter of whatever, I'll homeschool with you that first year. Because that's like, they're really not that far apart, and yet they'd have to be in different years. I didn't even think about that.
They're like 4 months apart, but because of how their birthdays fall.
I wonder if that's going to cause an issue as they get older, if we decide not to do anything about it.
I don't know. We'll have to look into that when the boys get closer.
We will.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't an issue for... I mean, I guess I never had anybody that was like that. All my friends were just I met them at school.
Right.
And I was always the youngest one in school. Like, sometimes I was.
Yeah.
The youngest one in the grade.
I feel like I was always right in the middle because my birthday's May.
Yeah, mine's like end of August.
Yeah.
And the cutoff was usually like September 1st, and with my birthday being like 3 days before the end of August.
So you immediately got in right when you turned 5 if
Yes.
you went to kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is exactly what I did.
yeah.
And so I was like the youngest person in like all of my classes, aside from like maybe a random kid would sometimes be
Right,
whatever,
yeah.
all through school.
That's wild.
Yep. I mean, I graduated like I was 17 when I graduated high school.
Oh, true. And I just turned 18. So,
yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, I was kind of like right in the middle. I wasn't the oldest kid, but I also wasn't the youngest kid.
That's my flex. I had an associate's degree at 17. Because, I mean, technically I did. I graduated with my associates at 17 years old.
That's true.
But I was privileged there. Not going to lie.
Right.
I was.
You got the...
I mean, that was available to everybody, but,
It's not available at every school, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not going to sit here and act like, oh, yeah, I got it, I had the privilege to be able to do that, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So overwhelmed. That sounds very overwhelming.
It was. And man, my whole life is overwhelming.
I was going to say, I feel like you have been very overwhelmed for going on like a while, but
going on a while.
But
That's a statement.
I feel like this last like 6-ish months has been a lot for you.
And even more so in like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because, oh God. I don't even know what I should share. Because I obviously don't want to give a lot about like my husband's work or anything like that. But, he has the second job now. Kind of just in this interim. Shit's expensive. And so now he works 7 days a week. The other job is technically only part-time, though. It's not a full-time job.
Right.
So he has, his second job for right now until we can figure out something else.
Yeah.
And that's been overwhelming because, he was only working 3 days, 3 12s for his job, and we were doing all right. But then, like, with rent increases and, just everything being so expensive.
Increases.
Literally, gas went way up there for a while. Wasn't it like 5 something for a minute?
I think it was just almost 5.
Almost 5, yeah.
That's expensive. So expensive, especially when, I mean, it's not like he has to drive super far for work, but still doing that 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Back and forth, like that adds up pretty quickly.
And it's like, and I still haven't even gotten my book money. Like the money that I made from selling my books.
In like August or
it's
September
in August,
or something.
yeah. So, I mean, if anyone's curious how that works for being an author, you don't get that right away.
Which,
you don't get it.
So
90
crappy.
days is what it is from the
So
sale.
crappy.
Oh, it sucked. And so, things are expensive.
I feel like that's the biggest overwhelming thing in this world for everybody, unless you are rich.
Yeah.
Is that everything is so expensive right now.
It is. And I mean, and that's no secret.
Yeah.
Everybody's struggling.
Everybody's struggling. And I saw a thing the other day that it was like, money can't buy happiness. But right now, it's kind of like, but it can, because it provides your shelter, it provides your food, it provides your transportation. Like, that's happiness,
Yeah.
Yes, I guess, family before money, of course, but we need money to survive in this world.
Yeah, and it's different for each area, because even like towns can have its own economy, and how much a minimum amount is to be able to be happy.
Right.
There is a minimum amount of money required to live a happy existence. And I mean, I say that, and there are exceptions, because there are people that probably make well below what I would consider a minimum amount.
Right.
Which, is essentially a livable wage. But the way that livable wages are calculated are not realistic either. Because it should include things like a phone bill, your necessities, your rent, your gas.
Right.
So it fluctuates.
Food.
Car payments, because I mean, not everybody just owns a car outright.
Right.
And even so, maintenance for that car, food, like you said.
Yeah.
School supplies, clothes. It needs to include all of these things, and it doesn't. Because I saw this video that was talking about how, and I mean, this may be a little controversial, the Great Depression. Somebody did like a calculation on what the average income back in the Great Depression. I think they they did the worst year of the Great Depression, so the one with the lowest wages.
Okay.
And they did a conversion, and they showed it. They like showed the conversion calculator and what it was. So it's not just them spewing a dollar amount and being like, this is what I say it is.
Yeah.
You know, they showed it, and it said that the equivalent in today's money is like $88,000 a year for a single individual.
Okay.
A single individual.
$88,000 a year.
A year.
Who's making that?
That's what I'm saying, and
not very many people.
No. That's the equivalent of what people were making in the Great Depression.
That's crazy.
And that's why, like, and I'm sure people struggled back then too, because obviously things were going to be whatever. But I mean, in today's money, that still can be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And people back then, you know, had a lot of kids. You know, they were single income. A lot of people still can't live on that in single income in today's world.
Right.
You know? And when you look at what the average income gets here in today's world, it doesn't even come close to that.
No.
And so someone was like, we're in a Great Depression, and nobody wants you to know that. If I can find the video in my likes, I will post it in the description so you can go and watch it yourself. But you can also just Google the information too. What was the average income during Great Depression?
That's crazy. I feel like that's also, I mean, it's hard for everyone.
Oh,
regardless,
of course.
But it's, I feel like for one income households, that's huge. Money is huge. Like,
it is.
I don't know about you. I'm assuming money is a constant topic in our household.
Yes.
Trying to
avoid
figure
it
out
more often than not.
Oh, us too. But it's
But
it's like a constant budgeting, rebudgeting, refiguring out where can we cut down on bills. And I'm sure double income families do this as well. But it's like a constant. I don't think there's a day that goes by where money is not brought up in some way. And I'm not saying we're fighting about money constantly, but it's right there in the back of our minds constantly.
Same.
And that's overwhelming because that's on top of everything else. If all I had to worry about was money, we'd be fine. I'd also be working.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
But because, and I'm not saying that I regret choosing to be a stay-at-home parent. I don't at all. But would it be a million times easier if I also had a job? 100%.
Yeah. But then that comes with its own stressors too. And it's like either we have to have an opposite schedule and I never see my husband.
Right.
Or we have to be sending the kids to a daycare, get a nanny, babysitter, whatever.
Right.
Pray and hope that family can help out. And the costs that come with all of those things. And then if you're on food stamps, because of being on the single income, you might not qualify anymore, not being on single income. But then that adds to the cost. So like, let's say your grocery bill for, family of whatever. I think in our state for like a family of 5 or whatever, you get like $500 a month or something like that. There are months that we end up exceeding that because we don't want to eat on top ramen all night, every day.
Yeah.
So we end up having to spend a little bit of our own money. So let's say that I got a job. We might not qualify for food stamps anymore, but that bill is the same. And if I'm only bringing in X amount and have to pay for childcare on top of groceries, there goes my paycheck.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
because we did, what was it? Was it the stay-at-home mom one that we did, the amounts for daycare?
Oh.
I think we calculated the amount for daycare.
I think so.
I think that's only in the video, though, not in the listening podcast I put on the screen, how much each of us would have to pay for our children. And if we were both to work, we likely wouldn't qualify for, food stamps, the different subsidies that they allow, the, child care credit thing that they have that like you get it at a reduced amount or whatever. And then so you add that on top of all the other costs, the gas, the car maintenance for having to go to work every single day, then no longer being able to qualify for food stamps, maybe not even qualify for like, if you're on state health care, now you have to pay for insurance. And it's like, is it that worth it anymore?
Right. And
And so you're fighting with that overwhelm.
Yeah. It's either, I feel like you're either super poor and you get a lot of help, or you're super rich and you can help yourself.
Yeah. And then it's that middleman.
That's where the majority, I think, of people sit, is right in that middle of
just barely making too much money
to get the help, but not enough to be living comfortably.
No. And then so you're literally
you're just in the struggle bus.
Yep. Just sitting on the struggle bus.
Yeah.
With literally every person you know.
Yeah.
And see, that's not okay.
It's so hard. And I know, like, people say, like, save. And, you know, we try to save as much as we can. And, you know, after a while, we were able to save up to go to Disneyland. But it's not easy to save. And you have to make sacrifices other places when you don't make a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And it's like...
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure that there's people out here that are listening to this and being like, well, you can afford that equipment. Well, you can afford whatever. It's like, yes,
right.
That's part of what we mean is when you save up for something,
yeah,
you know, you get to be able to get yourself something nice because you deserve it. When you've been sitting on the struggle bus for however long, sometimes it's nice to just get yourself something that,
right,
you know.
And that's where I think, like, the money can't buy happiness thing, like, comes in because... Okay, if you never spend money on yourself and you only spend money on, like, food and housing, so you just, that's the only life you get to live, that sounds
right?
very, very sad.
But then there's also the argument that we'll just get a better job. It's like, but, so we all know, the people in this area know what the good paying jobs are. I can think of two off the top of my head. One that my husband currently works at, and another one around here.
Yeah.
And it's like, though, and when I say, like, the two best, I mean that, like, it's entry level. You don't need, like...
You don't have to have any, like, certifications.
It doesn't take you 20 years to get to the good paying stuff.
Right.
Everywhere else is like, oh, this is an adult job, but it's $17 an hour.
But in 5 years, you'll be making $30.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so you want me to work 40 hours for $17 an hour. That does not even...
Plus, usually those jobs you have to go to schooling on top of it.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, when the most overwhelming thing about life is life itself, it becomes a problem.
It becomes hard. It becomes difficult. I think that's why we are seeing a huge increase in depression with people. Because life is hard right now.
It is.
I know
so
life
hard.
is always hard, and people who are older will say, well, life was hard when I was younger. Like, yes, life is always hard. We're in our hard right now.
Yeah. It's hard when it's almost impossible to get into housing. You know, when your only option is to rent because it is too expensive to buy a house because you have to put fucking $100,000 down. To be able to afford a monthly payment that you can afford.
And sometimes it's hard to even get into an apartment because the down payment that you have to put down is...
Literally.
And then you also have to prove that you can make, like, three times the rent. Yeah.
And when rent is $1,500...
That's hard to prove when you're not making that.
Yeah. Do the math. $1,500. Okay? Yeah. $1,500. You need to make 3 times that. That is this amount.
Right.
If you are getting $17 an hour for 40 hours a week, congratulations. You need a second job.
Yeah.
Because, yes, this number that you are making might technically pay the rent, but that is it.
Right.
That's not including utilities. That's not including your electric, because those are technically 2 different things here. That's not including if you have a water bill, you know, because some places have to pay water, garbage, your gas, your insurance, your phone, because don't even tell me that a phone isn't needed, because it is. You know how many jobs require you to download an app? So you need to have a smartphone of some kind. Smartphones are not free. Sometimes they're, you know, a couple $100 a month that you need to pay for.
Right.
You know, if you happen to have childcare that you need to pay for, there's that. If you're still paying back your student loans, there's that.
It adds up.
It is. I mean, I'm getting overwhelmed. Just sitting here. Oh,
yeah.
God.
And all of this money overwhelm doesn't even take into account, like, just everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Dealing with kids yelling.
Literally.
Dealing with, you know, Kaylee.
My heart is racing. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah. This podcast episode is overwhelming.
bet you if I were to take my heart rate thing, it'd be like,
you need to sit down. And you're like, I am.
But it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't take into account your kids yelling at each other. It doesn't take into account all the noises. And I get overwhelmed by sound.
Same.
I am waiting for the day that my dates are no longer like hurt when you put pressure on them so that I can put my loops back in.
Oh, yeah. I still haven't tried those.
I love them. And I
need
miss
to try
them.
those.
I haven't been able to use them in like 8 months because of my piercings.
Right.
But I don't regret the piercing because no migraines. Cause
right.
I couldn't do it.
Right. Fair. I think that's another reason why. So we've talked. I want more kids. I want 2 more kids.
Me too.
But there are factors as to why I don't. Mm-hmm. And one of those is being overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Because while, yes, I want more children. Yes, I think I could handle more children. When I go to sleep at night and I'm exhausted by the day, I think, could I handle 2 more? Granted, ages would be different by then, but still, could I?
I mean, 3 is not really that much more stressful than 2.
Yeah.
At least in my experience.
Right.
Yeah. Other than that, Ellie has her own extra stuff. But
right.
Aside from that, just her existence doesn't really add any negative or anything like that.
Yeah. It's just, but it's still adding one more person you have to take care of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's still adding one more voice in the house.
You know? Oh, yeah. And Ellie has a piercing
She has
scream.
a voice.
Yeah. She likes to make herself known. And it's probably because of her 2 older siblings that also make themselves known. So she's like, oh.
Well, maybe louder. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly.
I think that's why at the end of the day, we struggle with dinner. Because I'm so done that I could just go to bed without food. I think at the end of the day, it's really challenging because with the overwhelm comes the guilt. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like this swirling, like, massive storm in your brain.
It is.
That's just like stress, overwhelmed, guilt. Mm-hmm. Did I do enough? Am I making enough?
Yeah.
You know, and it's too much.
I always describe it as like a plate. And everything is a scoop of something. Eventually that plate is going to become so high that things are going to start spilling off the sides. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, you know, like I started going to a therapist. Mm-hmm. But that was technically an added something.
Right.
And so it's like, they say, oh, we'll just go talk to a therapist, get some help. And it's like, but that's an added thing that I have to throw into my schedule and make sure that I have time for. And if my husband works, and guess what? I have to try to have the kids do something quiet during that time.
And I think one thing people don't talk about with therapy is, while yes, I agree that therapy is a great thing, but going to a therapist also brings up a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like some things that you've suppressed. So now you're dealing with all these things that are getting brought back up that are now on your plate.
Yep. My therapist I say was, because unfortunately I can't see her anymore because she moved practices.
Oh, right. Damn it.
And I'm so mad. Not mad at her, just mad at the situation.
General,
I really liked her. It was really emotional, our last meeting. And I'm really sad I don't get to see her again.
Yeah.
I was supposed to have another appointment with her on this Saturday, but it's not going to happen now. And I don't know who I'm going to see again. I don't know if it's getting assigned to me or what, but like, you know, she was a trauma therapist, and so we talked a lot about the different traumas that I've gone through and stuff like that, and it did bring up a lot. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know if maybe she'll find this podcast someday, but I miss you.
That's hard too, I feel like the world's moving so fast. People leave so quickly. I've gone through, like we were just talking about the other day, I think I've gone through like 4 different primary care doctors in like 2 years.
Yep. I'm still waiting for them to like reassign mine.
Yeah, I'm waiting too. So it's, I keep saying it's a lot and it's overwhelming, but it is.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. It's so much to just. Like, I don't even have words for the overwhelm. And it's like, I wish that I could, you know, with this podcast, I wish that I had advice for you. But I don't. Maybe, you know, the only piece of advice that I can really think of as we get close to wrapping this up is, you know, find yourself somebody that you can talk to. Whether it's a therapist or a friend. I unload all of my baggage onto this one.
Which is okay. I unload on you sometimes too.
Yeah. So it evens itself out. Although
Exactly.
I think that I unload a bit more than you do.
I think it's just you have a lot of recent stuff.
Yeah.
So it feels like you do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just because you have a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Find yourself somebody to talk to. Find something, you know, mindful to do for yourself. One thing my therapist was telling me, she was like, you know, to find time for yourself, make time for yourself, whether that's sitting in a bath and reading, drawing, something. She's like, find yourself something to just not think about anything. You know, I was trying to draw and stuff more, and, you know, with actual like pen and paper,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and take some time away from the screens. And for those of you that listen to this podcast that also watched my TikTok, that's part of the reason why I stepped away from TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Was the having to make the skits every day, because it took a couple hours.
Right.
For some of you that don't know, like it was a lot.
Right.
I couldn't do it anymore. I had to take a step back.
Fair.
It was something that brought me joy, yes, but it was something that took out so much time in my day that I just couldn't. And then there was a point there where I was doing 2 a day.
That's a lot.
It was a lot, and it took like 5 hours out of my day to do
Yeah.
that. And so it was like 2.5 hours per thing, because I had to record, which took at least a half an hour, if not more, to record. And then usually anywhere from like an hour to 2 hours to edit. And sometimes I had to go back and fix it, and for like a 3-minute long video.
And you have to think up the concept.
Yeah. But between like outfit changes and having to re-record things that needed to get re-recorded, finding backgrounds and making sure that things fit in where they needed to fit in, and like it's a lot more than people think, because it's not just holding it up to my face and then just switching, because that's not entertaining.
Right. Right.
You know, and while I'm grateful for where those skits brought me and that I was able to create a whole book out of it, you know, it was a lot for me. And this book, actually, as much as I love this book and I'm so proud of where it has got me and I'm excited to see where it goes, there's so much of my real life in it. And that itself brought up a lot.
Right.
There are a lot of things in this book that were real.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything. It's technically still a fiction.
Right. There's just bits and pieces.
There's bits and pieces of my real life and my real pain. And now that I'm writing the second one, there's, you know, everything that's happened in both of the books are real events that have happened.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to me, but I haven't made up anything.
Right.
Everything that I have written about has happened in some way, shape, or form to somebody, and I've just kind of conglomerated it into one. Like whoever wrote The Handmaid's Tale, I forget her name, something Atwood.
Yeah. Oh, it's right there, but I can't think of it.
I recently saw something of hers. She was like, not a single thing in that book is fiction. She's like, I didn't make anything of it up. She's like, everything in that book has happened to somebody somewhere at one point in time. I've just created a singular story from all of these true events. And it's things like that that make it powerful.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But when some of those true events are yours, you know, it can be hard.
Yeah.
You know, and I do love it because I felt like I got to take a lot off my shoulders and tell my story without telling my story.
Right.
You know, within it. So there are people that read this book and they're, you know, they get to hear a little bit of me. And I got to heal a little bit from it because there were a lot of things that I put into it that I haven't told a lot of people. But you don't know what's true and what's not. So clearly I wasn't murdered, so I'm not Helen.
And your husband wasn't murdered.
What? Where are you going with this?
I don't know.
You're like, your husband wasn't murdered, so he's not Danny. And I was supposed to be like,
I meant to say husband's mother wasn't murdered.
So he's also, she's also not Helen. So.
Right.
I can't say much more.
don't know, her husband's murdered. And then it really threw me off when I said it. And I was like, wait, whose
Threw
husband
me
was
off.
murdered? Because I meant
don't think
husband's mother.
anybody-
No.
I mean, David dies. David/John
Yeah.
dies.
But he's nobody's.
He's technically fictional.
Yeah.
I don't think he related to literally anybody.
Yeah.
Eric is also completely fictional.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only two that I'm going to give away on if they're fictional or not.
Yeah.
Those are the only two I can confidently say are not real, not based on anybody real.
Right.
Everybody else, though, it's your guess. Most of the characters are fictional, though.
Right. Right.
There's just a couple that are based on real people.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
this podcast
we've
was
unloaded.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
Are you overwhelmed? I'm overwhelmed. Were you overwhelmed listening from this? What's going on in your life that's making you overwhelmed right now? Let us know down in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Share this with somebody who might be overwhelmed and who needs the refresher that, hey, you're not alone.
Right. And we're both okay.
We are. Yes, I'm okay.
We're just, this probably sounded a little heavy.
It's just a season to get through.
Yeah.
You know, we're making time to do it.
And we're taking the steps to make sure our mental health is okay, especially you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
well, once I get my new therapist, that'll be nice.
well, yeah. you're making steps.
I'm attempting to make steps, and
Yeah.
we're making steps to, you know, right the wrong situations and things like that. So,
Yep. It'll all work out. It's just hard when you're in it.
Yep.
And it's overwhelming when you're in it.
I'm getting a stress headache.
So with that headache, we are going to sign off and like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.